In a population of 8 billion people, there are only 3,000 billionaires on planet Earth. That's not even 1/10,000th of 1%, and seemingly for good reason. You've probably seen posts like this one showing that if you made $100 an hour, you'd need to have been working since 2,000 years before the time of Jesus to have earned $1 billion. Or this meme, which says it even more painfully. Earning $1 million a year, it would take a millennium to earn $1 billion. Not only does the math check out on both of those, but they ignored taxes and living expenses. So it's actually even harder to become a billionaire than they say. Or is it? Today, I'm going to show you why those calculations, while technically correct, actually don't make much sense. In fact, I'm going to prove that a modern-day American could become a billionaire within their lifetime on a middle-class salary alone. No trust fund, no winning lottery numbers, no Silicon Valley startup, just a job. Now, you're gonna have to watch me do math for a minute, but I'll try to keep it brief so we can get to the really good stuff afterward. Here's Bob, the wannabe billionaire. Bob graduates college at age 22 on an academic scholarship with a net worth of $0. He scores a solid engineering job that pays $100,000 a year. He didn't start out with any inherited wealth, and his income, while it's nothing to scoff at, is considered squarely middle class these days by Pew Research Center. Of course, he doesn't get to keep all that income. For tax purposes, let's assume he lives in my home state of Florida. Most people think that since his income falls in the 22% tax bracket, he'll pay 22% of $100,000, or $22,000 per year in income tax, plus another 7.65% for Social Security and Medicare taxes, adding up to almost 30 grand a year. But fortunately, that's not how taxes work, and Bob has some billionaire tricks up his sleeve to shield his income from taxes as well. Now, he won't be able to avoid the 7.65% for Social Security and Medicare, so he'll have to pay $76.50 no matter what. But he'll reduce his income tax in the following ways. First of all, he'll take the standard deduction of $15,000 that the IRS allows for individual taxpayers. He'll also max out his 401k by contributing $23,500 to it per year, which reduces his taxable income by that same amount. Finally, he'll also max out a traditional IRA, contributing $7,000 per year and further reducing his taxable income. Now, he's only getting taxed on $54,500 instead of the full $100K that he earns. And income tax brackets are marginal. So his first $11,925 will be taxed at 10%. Then his next $36,550 will be taxed at 12%. And only $6,025 of his income will be left to get taxed at the 22% rate, for a total of just $6,904 in income tax. Combined with Social Security and Medicare, he'll pay a grand total of $14,554 in taxes each year for an overall tax rate of 14.5%. Much better. Unfortunately, Bob still has to spend money to survive. He's committed to becoming a billionaire though, so he lives frugally on the budget that you see here. He has some awesome habits like splitting rent with a roommate or a partner, riding a bike to work most of the time, and cooking his Walmart groceries at home instead of eating out. Side note, I personally did all these things and lived on less than half of this budget throughout my 20s, which is a huge part of the reason I'm currently a millionaire in my early 30s. So I know it's possible from personal experience. Be sure to subscribe to Trip of a Lifestyle and check out our blog at tripofaLifestyle.com if you want more details. Anyway, after paying his taxes and all his bills, Bob is already saving $30,500 per year inside his 401k and IRA because he maxes them out. And because he lives so frugally, he still has an additional $32,386 left over, meaning he can save a grand total of $62,886 a year, or an average of about $172 a day. Now for this next part, to make the math a little easier to understand, I'm just going to assume he saves the same $172 a day for the rest of his career. In reality, he would probably be able to save an increasing amount each year as he earned raises and promotions at his job, which typically outpace inflationary spending increases and changes in the tax code. But let's just build in some extra padding here and assume he blows all his raises on a fancier lifestyle and some well-deserved vacations. Now we get to the most important part. Bob isn't just going to let that money sit in a bank account. He's going to invest it. I promised at the beginning of this video there will be no giant windfalls for Bob, so we're not going to make him some expert stock picker who invests all his money into the next Apple. In fact, We're going to have him be completely boring and average. He'll just buy and hold a passive S&P 500 index fund, which automatically tracks the average performance of the US stock market, including winners and losers, without any special management. He'll do the same thing in his 401k, his IRA, and his taxable brokerage account, and he'll set them all up to automatically reinvest all dividends along the way. Here's what happens. Bob works from age 22 to the standard US retirement age of 67. At this time, his investments have grown to $69 million. Still nowhere near billionaire status. But Bob is determined to become a billionaire. So he lives off Social Security during retirement, leaves his portfolio untouched, and just lets it ride for another 27 years, letting time work its magic. At the ripe old age of 94, after 72 total years of investment growth, Bob achieves his dream. His portfolio is worth almost $1.2 billion. And by the way, if you're wondering what kind of investment return was assumed in this calculation, I want to be really clear about this. Instead of using some totally hypothetical number, I used the actual average return of the S&P 500 for the last 72 years. You can look it up yourself. So, is it easy to become a billionaire on a middle-class salary? No, not exactly. But compare this result to the claims made by others from the beginning of this video. We went from needing to somehow save $1 million a year for 1,000 years to instead investing just $172 a day for the first part of one guy's lifetime and then just letting it ride until he's old. And here's something crazy. Of the $1.2 billion Bob ended up with, he only actually had to save 0.24% of that money himself because he started so early. The rest of the money came from passive investment returns over a very long period of time. In fact, his very first day's contribution of $172 grew to $350,000 by itself. In investing, time does most of the work for us. This is why Albert Einstein famously said, "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world." From a more practical standpoint, if you want to be a successful investor, you can learn 3 big things from Bob. 1, start investing early, because time is your biggest financial ally. 2, live frugally, because your money can't grow if you're not saving it in the first place. And 3, don't worry too much about being an exceptionally skilled investor, because the average return of a passive stock market index fund produces breathtaking results effortlessly. But now let's discuss a deeper question. If you were 22 years old right now, would you actually try to embark on Bob's journey to become a billionaire by age 94? Here's one way to think about that question. Warren Buffett is a real 94-year-old billionaire right now. If you could trade places with him, would you? Personally, I wouldn't even consider it. That's because time isn't just the most important asset in compound interest calculations. It's your most important asset in life. Rather than trying to accumulate as much money as humanly possible, just focus on investing enough money at a young age so that you don't have to spend your whole life at work if you don't want to. My wife and I basically did the first few years of Bob's journey and then permanently quit our jobs at age 29 once we had enough invested to retire. And we have no regrets about that. Instead of focusing so much on getting richer and richer, we stopped setting our alarm clocks. And now we spend several months each year traveling the world. If you're a middle-class American, you have the means to do the same thing if you want to. If you don't believe me, you can see exactly how on our blog. It's 100% free, so check it out and subscribe here for more. Oh, and make sure you spend the next 72 years of your life wisely, because that time is worth over $1 billion. If you like this kind of stuff, don't forget to subscribe or follow along on your favorite social media platform.